Hey, you know what would make your customer service help desk way better? Dumping it and then switching to Intercom. But you're not quite ready to make that change. We get it. That's why Finn, the world's leading AI customer service agent, is now available on every help desk. Finn can instantly resolve up to 80% of your tickets, which makes your customers happier and gets you off the customer service rep hiring treadmill. Finn by Intercom, the leading customer service AI agent, now available on every help desk.
It's Saturday the 15th of February. I'm Ciara Evans, and this was a week that saw Trump's Gaza plan cause chaos, Ukraine under pressure as the US pushes for peace talks, farmers' protests escalate, and Paris hosts an AI action summit.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner was defending herself last weekend after she faced criticism over her handling of a meeting with bereaved families and survivors of the Grenfell disaster earlier this month. The government has announced that the tower block will be dismantled, but some families say their concerns were ignored and accused her of being aggressive in the meeting.
I certainly don't feel like I was aggressive, and if anyone felt that way, then I would be sincerely upset about that. I think what I tried to do is take a really difficult meeting and explain to people and make sure that those that were bereaved had that information and the survivors had that information before the decision was made public.
She was also pressed on her relationship with PM Keir Starmer, sidestepping a question on whether she'd once texted a colleague that he couldn't run a bath. Asked about Labour's pledge to build 1.5 million new homes in 5 years after figures show approval rates for new developments have dropped and house prices hit record highs since the new government took office, she was insisting she's not giving up.
Within the first month I was asked, do you want to review what you said in your manifesto around the 1.5 million homes? But I wasn't going to give up on the target, and it's why we're determined to make sure we meet that 1.5 million homes.
The awkward group chat has become a fact of life these days, the inappropriate channel between mates that might go too far in terms of humour or taste. But a WhatsApp chat called Trigger Me Timbers has had real life consequences for 2 Labour MPs from Manchester after racist and offensive posts emerged. The group, which was mainly comprised of candidates and councillors in Greater Manchester, has led to 2 MPs being suspended, including Health Minister Andrew Gwen, who was also sacked. 11 Labour councillors have also been suspended. Mother of the House of Commons, Diane Abbott, isn't surprised, but she is disappointed.
It's very sad that in 2025 people haven't moved beyond that. But my response is always just to get on with my job. After all, there are people of colour in other walks of life that have to suffer much worse abuse.
Conservative Party co-chair Nigel Huddleston said that it's right that it's not just those 2 who made remarks who are facing consequences, and that MPs should be held to a higher standard.
Being on a WhatsApp group and saying something that is completely inappropriate, you should call out or leave the WhatsApp group. The other MPs involved will have to be held to account. Immigration
was back on the agenda. Prime Minister's question time on Wednesday as Tory leader Kemi Badenoch went on the attack over a Palestinian family. It appears the family were granted permission for asylum under a legal loophole which was intended to cater for Ukrainian families fleeing the war. She wanted to know if the Labour leader would appeal the decision, and he immediately responded by announcing that the Home Secretary was investigating the case and that he believed the judge's decision was wrong. Badenoch then repeated the same question, which drew a fiery response about the Tories' immigration record.
They lost control of immigration. We had nearly 1 million people coming to this country. Same old Tories, open borders, empty promises.
Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister was on top of his brief, perhaps he'd be able to answer some questions.
The UK narrowly avoided a technical recession on Thursday as new figures published by the Office of National Statistics show the GDP grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of 2024. Coming after zero growth in the third quarter, any sign of green shoots in the economy will ease some of the pressure the Chancellor has been under since the budget. She didn't sound like she was ready to celebrate, though.
The growth numbers have come in higher than many expected, but I'm still not satisfied. And that's why I am determined to go further and faster in delivering the economic growth and the improvements in living standards that our country deserves.
The growth in part was driven by a strong December, particularly for the services sector, and it suggests that more more growth may follow in 2025. However, Tory Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride was unimpressed by the numbers.
We had also that disastrous budget with all those tax and spend increases, and that really has pretty much killed growth stone dead, whilst at the same time stoking up inflation.
Last Sunday saw Israeli troops withdraw from Gaza's Netzarim corridor, a key corridor which separates northern Gaza from the rest of the Strip. It came just one day after Israel and Hamas carried out their fifth prisoner swap, with Hamas releasing 3 Israeli hostages in exchange for 183 Palestinian prisoners. Meanwhile, Israeli PM Netanyahu still appeared enthusiastic about US President Trump's proposal for the US to take ownership of Gaza and turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. He also denied poor treatment of the Palestinian prisoners.
We took thousands of Palestinian Hamas prisoners. You want to make sure that he doesn't have suicide belt. So you ask them to take their shirts off. So now we have photos of thousands of these prisoners who have, without their shirt. And you will not find not one, emaciated. In fact, you'll find quite a few who are overweight.
Donald Trump continued his direct intervention in the Middle East this week, warning Hamas that all hell will break out if they don't return the Israeli hostages by midday on Saturday. His remarks and his plan to forcibly redevelop Gaza have helped to crank up tensions as Hamas announced they are pausing the next phased hostage release. That meant that the Israeli military cancelled all holiday leave and stand ready to re-engage in an increasingly tense atmosphere. Trump hosted King Abdullah of Jordan in the White House on Tuesday amid rising tensions over his plan to redevelop the Gaza Strip and forcibly remove almost 2 million Palestinians. There was no let-up in that proposal, and Trump rebuffed reporters who asked if the US was intending to buy, claiming there was nothing left in what he called the war-torn country.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza. What is that? No reason to buy.
After the White House press conference, Hamas confirmed their commitment to the ceasefire, blaming Israel for delays, and also called Trump's proposal for Gaza racist and a call for ethnic cleansing. Palestinian ambassador to the UK, Hussam Zomlot, says the rights of the Palestinian people need to be respected.
Palestine is not a real estate deal. Gaza is not for sale. Gaza should and will be rebuilt. We have all the plans for that. People must be allowed to return to their homes and stay on their land.
Although Wednesday saw Donald Trump focused on Ukraine, his plan to redevelop Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East was still causing political chaos across the world. Negotiators in Egypt and Qatar have been trying to ensure the ceasefire stays in place after Hamas threatened to withhold hostage releases on Saturday, while Wednesday saw Jordan and Egypt release a joint statement which said Gaza must be rebuilt without displacing the Palestinian population. And they got support from French President Emmanuel Macron.
The right answer is not a real estate operation. This is a political operation. Just because this is not a free land. So you cannot say to 2 million people, okay, now, guess what? You will move.
Professor of International Relations at LSE, Fawaz Gargaz, says that the whole affair looks like it's been created to give Israel a reason to resume fighting in Gaza.
Israeli Prime Minister never wanted a ceasefire in Gaza. He gifted President Trump a temporary ceasefire before Trump's inauguration. What Netanyahu has now is a green light from President Trump to start the war anytime after Saturday.
Donald Trump announced on Wednesday that he had a long and productive call with Russian President Putin and that America and Russia would begin negotiations to end Russia's war in Ukraine. It's not clear on what basis the negotiation would take place, but it probably didn't help that new US Secretary of Defense, former Fox News host Pete Hegseth, appeared to immediately make concessions to Russia at his first NATO meeting in Brussels.
We want, like you, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. But we must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective.
Ukrainian President Zelensky said late on Wednesday that he had spoken to President Trump and was sounding more optimistic about achieving what he called a real peace. US Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent was in Kyiv with a draft agreement around the much-discussed rare earth mineral rights, which Zelensky hopes will persuade Trump to focus on Ukraine's demands. 7 European countries and the EU Commission have now announced that they will require a seat at the negotiating table to ensure a fair and lasting peace, while UK Defence Secretary John Healey also announced additional funding for Kyiv.
At this crucial moment, we must step up further to strengthen Ukraine, pressure Putin, secure peace. And speaking as a European Defence Minister, we know our responsibilities.
Thursday saw Donald Trump continue to chat about his conversation with the Russian president, saying that Putin wants peace in Ukraine and even suggesting that Russia should be readmitted to the G7. That didn't match up with Ukrainian President Zelensky's view of Putin, who did politely point out that Putin had tried to assassinate him in Kyiv and was quietly insisting that both Europe and Ukraine need to be around the negotiating table.
I'm grateful to President Trump for his sincere interest in our common opportunities, in how we can bring real peace together. It was a long conversation, and President Trump informed me of what Putin had told him. We believe that America's strength is enough to push Russia and Putin to peace together with us, together with all our partners.
Meanwhile, the US Secretary of Defense, former Fox News host Pete Hegseth, was suggesting everything is on the table at the NATO conference, including a reduction in US troop numbers in Europe, which would greatly please Putin. He was busy promising that Uncle Sam wouldn't become Uncle Sucker on his watch, but UK PM Keir Starmer was more interested in practical support for Ukraine.
Nobody wants the conflict to continue, and Ukrainians, more than anybody, want the conflict to end. But we must make sure that Ukraine is at the heart of this, and it's really important that Ukraine is in the strongest possible position.
England's farmers were back on their tractors on Monday, not to tend the fields, but to protest at Labour's plan to change inheritance tax rules for farms. There were protests across the country over the tax charge, which will see properties valued at over £1 million become eligible for a reduced rate of inheritance tax for the first time. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has defended the move, but former Tory Home Secretary James Cleverly was out on the streets of Westminster to plead his constituents' case.
They're not listening yet. But the point I've made is these people are not going to stop. You know, this goes to the heart of everything.
Farmer Dan Willis spoke to Sky News from the protest, and he says farmers are getting squeezed between a higher cost of living and pressure because of poor weather conditions and rising technology requirements.
Between subsidies, weather, commodity prices, input prices, and now a change in government and a complete change of policy towards the countryside has now left us in some severe dire straits.
That wasn't the end of the protest either, as they scored a major PR victory on Thursday when a noisy tractor-led protest forced Prime Minister Keir Starmer to abandon a PR lunch in Buckinghamshire. The PM was there to announce a new government scheme which will see new towns built across England in a bid to ease pressure on the housing market. However, as the placard-waving farmers descended, Starmer, the farmer-harmer, had to beat a retreat, and the protesting farmers weren't finished either.
We are not going away. We will never go away. We will not go away even if this becomes law. You know, this will still be persistent. Everywhere this man goes, we will be.
Still to come on the Standout 7, the big hitters of AI meet up in Paris, and Demi Moore wins again in Santa Monica.
Right after this. From real inspiration to digital iteration to achieving perfection. Make it right the first time with a digital twin. Transform the everyday with Siemens. Welcome back.
Labour faced a storm of protests from MPs on Tuesday over the assisted dying bill. The bill, which has headed to the committee stage before a final vote in the Commons, may now be in jeopardy after a change in the process for sign-off on terminal cases. It will no longer require a High Court judge's approval, but instead an expert panel consisting of a lawyer, a psychiatrist and a social worker. Lib Dem MP Sarah Olney, who opposes the bill, said it's too late in the process to change the way that the final decisions are to be made.
The bill that was passed at second reading specifically gave provision for a High Court judge, and many MPs will have voted for it on that basis. So to make this really profound change at this time makes it very, very difficult for the committee to actually decide whether this is the right thing or not in order to improve the bill.
Labour's Kim Leadbeater, who is the sponsor of the assisted dying bill, says the decision to change the final process was based on expert testimony and will add extra protection for those who choose to end their lives.
We heard evidence from over 50 witnesses as a bill committee, and there's no point having witnesses if you don't listen to what they've got to say, and there was a clear desire for a more multidisciplinary approach to the process.
French President Emmanuel Macron hosted an AI Action Summit in Paris on Tuesday. The event was attended by more than 60 countries, including India, China, Australia, Japan and the US. American Vice President J.D. Vance addressed the event and warned against the EU's approach, claiming that too much regulation will kill a transformative industry. The US and the UK also declined to sign up to the declaration calling for an inclusive and sustainable approach to AI. The conference also saw President Macron urge tech companies to plug as he pitched France as the perfect location for data centres, in part because of his country's plentiful nuclear energy production. Key speakers included Pharrell Williams, Google CEO Sundar Pichai, and the godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton. You can hear more about the AI Summit in this Sunday's Sunday 7. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also spoke and emphasised the need for an inclusive approach.
AI is not standing still, neither can we. Let us move for an AI that is shaped by all of humanity, for all of humanity. Let's make sure we are ready for the future right now.
The stars were out in Santa Monica last weekend for the Critics' Choice Awards, where Hollywood's biggest names got one step closer to Oscar glory. Anora took home Best Picture, edging out many of its Academy Awards rivals, while Emilia Perez, The Substance and Wicked led the film winners with 3 trophies each. Over in TV land, Shogun reigned supreme with 4 awards, including Best Drama Series and 3 acting awards. Clearly, the critics love a bit of swordplay. And Demi Moore's fairy tale comeback continued with a Best Actress win for The Substance, her first major role since 1997's G.I. Jane. With Oscar night just 3 weeks away, her chances of a big win look good.
For anybody out there who is still on their journey, still struggling to find their way, trying to get a script made or whatever it is that you do, because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it isn't happening. So just stick with it and know that dreams do come true. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes and we'll give you the world.
To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa. Easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.